I think you're doing a disservice to all the people, the millions of people in this country that are making minimum wage and are getting exploited.
You use the word exploited, and I find this funny, you see, because Sam, do I know you personally? I don't know you, right? So if I was to hire you and pay you any wage, I'm doing you a favor. You see, you came to me for a job. So to say that I'm exploiting you is quite an extraordinary thing when I'm giving you what's called an opportunity. When you come to me, guess what? There's very few of me employers. There are a ton of you.
It's 1,000 yous, it's only one of me.
There's very few of me employers. There are a ton of you, people who are seeking jobs. So to use the Marxist terminology of exploitation is quite extreme when someone's giving you an opportunity. You would think you might consider saying something like, thank you.
The food. Oh my God, Jesus Christ.
If someone was to go to you for a job, if you have the idea and the innovation, okay, sure, but you're nothing without the worker. If the workers got up, if the workers got up and left during your operation, you would make $0 that day. Just because you have the idea doesn't mean you have the the higher power to exploit whoever that you want. I mean, the minimum wage will probably impact you negatively. I mean, you say you don't because of how much you pay your workers.
Yeah, I pay my workers a lot because they're high value.
And you talk about how you've traveled all over the world and you have all these experiences, but I mean, surely you know that America treats its workers probably the worst in the first world when it comes to things like healthcare, job benefits, paid leave, vacation time.
Untrue. And let me tell you how you said a couple of things that are untrue.
Yeah, go ahead.
The first thing, and like what we got to do is, I don't ever want to cut you off, but when you establish one point before you go on to the next one, if you just kind of like, maybe just like pause it. You said that the employer needs the employees, like the workers are so important. No, the person who has the idea, the know-how, the capital, and the willpower to organize and make things happen, that's the most important person. We know that as a clear indication of how they're compensated at the highest level, millions, billions of dollars. And let me clarify for you how unimportant a low-skill worker is. And this is how I know that you're lost, my dear brother. Here's the great thing about the modern era. I can sit where I am, literally right here, not move a muscle. I can get off of this meeting. I can code a mobile application. Then I can run Google Ads. And that application can make me $1 million without me having any employees or workers. We're in an era in which we can leverage technology, machines, robots, robotics, without even using low-wage workers. So the fact that you think someone else owes you something shows me you have a victim mentality. I'm not your father, your mother. We don't have blood. Why do I owe you something? You're a stranger to me.
Sure, your point stands about using technology to create an app and to generate some sort of productivity. Yeah, that's correct in the modern age, but that doesn't mean that workers who are being paid minimum wage by people who I'm talking about, which are owners of businesses that use labor from their workers in order to generate capital that they disproportionately retain as business owners, exploit their workers. And when I say exploit, I mean they don't pay them a living wage. They don't pay them enough of a wage for them to get by.
Why does another man owe you a living wage? Why don't you pay yourself a living wage? If you're so valuable, why don't you go create your own job and then pay yourself a living wage?
What do you mean? If you're an employer, you have the obligation to pay someone in the living wage.
You have the obligation to pay them what they're willing to work for. You see, it's an agreement. No one in America is forced to take a job, right? Like, let's not start here.
So okay, wait. So everyone in America has the right to die. I mean, do you not understand there's some sort of coercion going on here? If you want to live as a human being, you need to generate some way of keeping yourself alive. So you need to get a job. The people you don't.
No, you don't.
How do you live?
See, Sam, you're lying right now. Let me tell you what you're lying about. Me, as I just said with the previous caller, I surmise that it's because I have a name like Marquett Devon Burton, which probably sounds like an African-American woman to a lot of the people who are seeing my job application, which is probably why they didn't want to pass me on to the hiring manager. I was having trouble getting a job. Even though I went to Berkeley and Johns Hopkins, you lied just now and said that you got to get a job. I went the other route. I created a business. You see, and in creating a business, I started offering value to a marketplace. Everyone's getting paid what they're worth. What you should ask yourself, Sam, is why is it I'm so concerned with trying to figure out how low wage people can continue being low wage instead of hopping onto this Marquettism, you dig, and trying to figure out how I can help people offer more value and they can get paid for the increased value they're bringing. Why are you so concerned with dealing with the floor instead of trying to take people to the mountaintop?
What? Because the majority of the people that exist in the United States are at the floor or somewhere near the floor, comparative to the top 1%. Is this is not disputed?
You're telling me
this is not disputed.
America make minimum wage? We're talking about
no. I'm saying to the floor. If we have a graph and the top is
minimum wage.
Yeah, I know that the floor is minimum wage. Okay, so let's just make this distinction. Most people in America are closer to being homeless than being a billionaire, correct?
Sam, let's stick to the truth instead of playing games.
I'm not playing games. I'm trying to clarify your position
about minimum wage.
Yeah.
You said most people are on the floor. The floor is as low as you can go, which means
I say relative to the people who are making the most money in this country.
Americans are not making minimum wage.
Okay.
So why are we pretending as though the most developed country on the planet Earth, the most developed country in world history, why are we pretending as though there's a real poverty issue here when the only real issues are mental health and the ability to help people deal with mental health issues? That's the real issue. There is no issue with the minimum wage. There's issue with people not getting skills to get jobs that pay good wages. The issue is miseducation and a lack of guidance from the culture that tells people go to college, which is a meaningless phrase that leads you to studying African American studies, English, or sociology, which pays. Okay, what you really need to figure out is what the truth is. The truth is we're in a capitalist society where you are rewarded based on your merit. And if your skill level is as a Walmart greeter, you're going to get paid pennies, and that's what you deserve. You're lucky you don't get replaced by a sign, because most of the low-wage workers, whether they're at TSA, Walmart greeter, or McDonald's, they can be replaced by an iPad, and they should be. They should be thankful for the job they do have, and they should pray for the day they get a whiff of this Marquettism so they can get some game and skills to become something better than they are today.
How do you I know you have a brand to uphold and an image to uphold.
I don't have a brand, my dear boy. This is not a product. I'm not promoting a product. I didn't come on YouTube to make money. Brand goes for products. I'm not a product. I'm a human being.
Okay.
I'm a man.
Okay.
Let me help you further about that. Let me help you a little more, since you want to talk about productivity and all this stuff going on in this fine country. Outside of this country, which I've traveled widely, you want to talk about poverty. Right here in America, you're imagining poverty. That's relative poverty. What you're really describing is people who think they should have more than they deserve. You got poor people or homeless people. I was in Venice Beach, met a bum who told me he was a vegan. You got dietary restrictions and you homeless, dog? That's crazy. We're in an era where people can afford to get tattoos and they can afford to have pets and they can afford to play video games and they got all the time in the world to Netflix and chill, but you want to get more money for your laziness? That's outrageous. Let me tell you about real poverty, little buddy, since you haven't been around the real world. If you go to Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, and this breaks my heart, this is what you need to focus on, partner. When I would go on a 10-mile run in the middle of the night in Addis Ababa, I would come to this one particular place, the people outside, most of them females, wearing hijab, which is to say these are fairly religious conservative women who are prostituting themselves literally for dollars, for less than you would pay for a goddamn Big Mac, because they're in real poverty. Poverty when you can't eat, poverty where you can't pay for tattoos you don't need, poverty where you can't pay for video games, poverty where you don't even know what Netflix is because you don't have a TV at home. That's poverty, partner. What you're talking about is nonsense and you have no integrity, and you and your mentality literally disgusts me because you want handouts. In reality, if you cared as much as you say you care, you'd be focused on those who are truly in need, people in the third world. You are a whiner, a bourgeois person in the first world who is whining for people who literally are failures because they choose to be losers. And I say that as one who's come out of the mud, came up in Section 8 housing, came up with a father in prison, came up with a mother on crack cocaine.
So then
out of the mud. So then it's personal choice in this country.
So then
I dropped my hot pocket.
And you know that that kind of prostitution exists in the U.S.
No. So the girl come downstairs. She come out her apartment with her baby with no shoes on. I said, oh, girl, it's cold outside.
Like, why do you feel like the government needs to put their titty in your mouth?
It's not going to personally affect me. It's going to be personally affecting a lot of people who I know who work hard. Like your insinuation that people don't work hard because they make minimum wage is preposterous. Like the
Sam,
people who
we're not talking about if people work hard. We're talking about if minimum wage should be raised in America. That's the topic. Should we raise?
Yeah, of course. If someone, okay. Let's say someone who is working some sort of job where they're doing physical labor all day and they're working really hard. You're telling me that they don't deserve to have a better standard of living because over the course of like 40, 50, 60 years, the wages have stagnated while productivity and the wealth in this country has increased.
Sam, they're not contributing to the wealth. That's why their wage stagnates, because they're not.
How did they not contribute to the wealth? You're telling me that you're essentially wait. So let me just clarify.
Sam,
you're essentially telling me that the people at the bottom that do the manual labor to keep all of these businesses in business and continuing production and providing labor so that they can peddle goods or whatever have you under the capital owners, they produce nothing. Capital owners are the ones that produce everything, and they have been causing this country to be on the rise. And so the vast wealth disparity between everyone in this country, between the rich and the poor, between all that is justified.
Let me help you out, because you don't even understand yourself, Sam. Let me help you understand yourself. Number one, you're a Marxist, and you're arguing for equality, which doesn't actually exist. Like, for example, you and I are not equal. I can look at you and tell if we're in a foot race, I'm going to smoke you. We're not equal. We're not the same. There are probably some things you can probably beat me at. Like, for example, if we had a lying contest, you'd outperform me in lying. Now, you are clearly one who believes in equality. Equality is false. That's why in the Olympics, we're
not talking about equality. We're talking about raising the floor for the most vulnerable, most exploited people in this country.
You're lying. No one's being exploited. Let me tell you why. If they were being exploited, where's the force being applied? There's no force being applied. I am a human being just like you're a human being. So if you and I as human beings, and we went out and chose jobs, we can choose to accept a job or to decline a job, just as an employer can choose to accept an employee or decline an employee.
That's a false choice. That's a false choice. I want to live. Why would I choose to just lay down and die if I need a job to generate income to live?
You don't
That's a
need
false
a job
choice.
To
you don't need a job.
Again, you're lying again. I already.
How did you survive? How did your family survive when you were in Section 8 housing? Was that not a job?
No, my dear boy, I didn't have a job. I actually
no. Your parents, your parents, your guardian. You didn't have a job.
You just said you didn't have a job, and then you said my parents. Which is, are you asking me about me?
Sorry. When you were in Section 8 housing, in order to survive, the government helped you. In addition to that, what else? Did your parents have a job or not?
No, my mother was on crack cocaine. My mother was on crack cocaine. My father was in prison.
And so the government helped you and allowed you to sustain yourself.
Just the same way it's occurring today, which lets you know that all happened at the minimum wage then, which was still relatively low. And it lets you know that people who are in poverty can get by just fine. They have all of the basics necessary to skill themselves. So if they choose, make a choice, change their personal behaviors, improve their knowledge. And guess what? We're in an era called the information age, where you can literally go online on Code Academy or Khan Academy and train yourself to be able to earn more. And we know that this happens all the time because there were two people on here right before you who gave stories that started in poverty and ended in wealth and abundance. And why did that happen? Because of their personal actions. You should ask yourself, Sam, why are you among the chorus of white liberal women? Those are your masters.
Oh man, the building is on fire.
Of white liberal women who would basically say, and this is basically pointing out assumed inferiority in the people who are making minimum wage, as though they can't improve. I used to make minimum wage, now I don't. Things change, people improve. What is your obsession as though people should live a whole lifetime at minimum wage? That's not what it's designed for. If you start today as a construction worker, working with your hands, toiling as a body, you're not adding significant value. If 20 years later you're still doing that, you're a idiot, because you've not improved yourself and you've not improved your offering to the marketplace. You've not improved the employer's ability to grow their bottom line. So why would they grow your wages? They wouldn't. And what's worse, there are many of you. And when there are many of something, it has very low value on the marketplace. So what your issue is the reality of capitalism. You hate capitalism and you hate markets. But let me tell you how really goofy you are, Sam. Most people, you said, are poor, right? We're in a democracy. If most people, i.e. poor people, really believed as you did and believe they're in a bad situation, they'd be able to change it through the vote, right? So that lets you know the idiocy either of your ideology or of the people you're talking about, because they have the power to change the outcome. Because look at Walmart, for example. They pay low wages. They pay minimum wage in some cases. Who shops at Walmart? Not me. People who want deals, low-income people. So they're actually financing the corporations you say are exploiting them, which lets me know that you don't understand human nature, you don't understand people, you don't understand markets, you don't understand capitalism. You are a simple-minded complainer who does not understand the greater world.
How do you square people shopping at Walmart as something where they don't understand? You understand that Walmart is the biggest employer in maybe, like, I don't know, 20 states. That they're subsidized by the government because their wages are so low that the people that work at Walmart have to have food stamps. That's not the market and paying people like a fair wage. That's Walmart exploiting the system, exploiting their workers in order to gain market share and isolate the market. If Walmart is the only place that sells a variety of goods in a certain area and they push out all the competition, they are the only place that you can get a job. They are the biggest employer in 20 out of 50 states or something insane like that. And the only wages that they pay are garbage. Then, I mean, how do you square that with your ideology where it's like,
Sam, why did I answer your question and you don't understand it? Listen to me, Sam. Sam, listen to me, King. Listen.
Yeah, go ahead.
You asked me, how do I square, quote, Walmart being the biggest employer in fill in the blank locality? I just told you, we're in a free enterprise system. You can have 30 felonies, be a sex predator, and still have the freedom to create your own business and sell your own products and services. That is a true privilege. Within communist societies, you can't do
so. So Marquett, let me
be clear.
Go ahead.
You asked me, how do I square that? I square that by no one is forcing you to work for Walmart. You get to choose to create a business if you want. And here's what's more. If you want to go to a different locality and work for a different employer, you have the choice. And here's the other thing, Sam. If you increase your skills, you have more options of employers. Am I wrong?
You're not wrong about that, but your argument that you can just increase your skills and just move, okay, that's a fair argument you can make in maybe some coastal cities, or maybe if you're a tech worker, there's a lot of like brain drain that's happening in some of these cities where college educated people are moving to coastal cities in order to gain higher income and things like that. But we're talking about the minimum wage here. We're talking about companies exploiting the low minimum wage in certain areas.
Who's exploiting when you have choice?
Okay, listen.
Who's exploiting?
Okay, wait, hold on. And then
why are you lying about the fact that we're in a society? Are you a slave, Sam?
This was the second point that I was going to come to. What's your ideal economy? What's your ideal world, Marquette? Is it where everyone is a business owner and everyone's a business owner and everyone's just making money off everyone, and every single person has a business underneath their house and they're all driving Bentleys, and everyone can be paid whatever they determine they're being paid?
This is a good question, Sam. I think this is actually your first good question, and I appreciate you sharing this question with me. I'm deeply thankful for it. America has been wildly prosperous during a couple of times in its history. Some of those times were quite unfortunate for people of color as they were legally discriminated against. So, America was wildly prosperous after the World War II, for example, wildly prosperous in the 20s. There have been clear examples of when the economy, the capitalist economy, was thriving and dynamic. And what I want to point out to you is that Capitalism is the very best economic system on the planet Earth. However, there have been issues with immoral capitalism. You see enslavement and real forms of exploitation. You use the term loosely and thoughtlessly. You ask me about my ideal society. My ideal society is a society wherein you have people who are in a culture that understands true contribution, self-improvement, minimalism, living according to your true means. You see, for example, in this society, everyone can access the basics of service. There is not a poor person in this fine country who cannot access, if they fill out the requisite paperwork, a roof over their head and free health care. And this has been the case for my entire whole life.
You can make the case that you can fill out paperwork and get some healthcare, or maybe like a roof over your head. A roof over your head doesn't mean anything. The roof could be leaky. There was a documentary. There was a documentary about a whole. There was a. Am I wrong? Please refute me. There was a documentary about a community of people in the South, a community of Black people who had roofs over their head, but you know what they didn't have? Opportunity. They didn't have a working sewage system, and it was frequently flooded, right? Because the municipality did not care enough about them to plan ahead or to help them out when they got flooded.
Problem for every solution, Sam. Let me tell you the difference between you and I, and this is who we actually are is going to reflect onto the actual good we do in the world. I have a hunch that you only do lip service, Sam. I've employed over 85 people.
No,
how many people have you employed?
I've worked on campaigns. I've volunteered. I do various good works around.
How many people have you employed in your lifetime?
0.
I'm not surprised you've employed 0, because you've come up with 0 solutions, Sam. And I want you to understand, and I'm saying this to you as a mentor. I am against your will. I'm about to mentor you. You are babbling. I am acting. You say you don't like minimum wage. Well, if we look at our deeds, maybe it's me who doesn't like minimum wage, because I've employed over 85 people and I've always paid them over minimum wage. And what's more that I did for them, I gave them knowledge, the knowledge that they needed to earn for self. You, on the other hand, have paid $0. You should not speak about minimum wage because you've never paid any wage. It's always the people like you who have done nearly nothing for other human beings who have so much to say. And the reason you have so much to say is because it's easier to say than to do. And here's the problem. You asked me, what kind of world do I want to see? I want to see the kind of world I'm creating. You see, I create businesses and hire people and help them provide for their families. And I give them knowledge to help them advance so they don't have to work for me, so they can eventually work for themselves or work on their own. The pie is big enough for everyone to have a slice. But guess what? All you've done here is create problems for every solution. You told me, I said this, and then you tried to lie. I said in America, every person can get access to healthcare and access to a roof over their head, especially if they leverage the government to do that, which is a fact. And I know it's a fact because unlike you, Sam, I've lived in many cities here and had a lot of experience. And let me just give you a little background on people who do things instead of babble. Number one, I used to work in government in Baltimore City, which is, there's a lot of heroin usage in Baltimore. So I worked under Stephanie Rawlings Blake there. But I realized those government people are largely self-interested dirtbags. When people go into government, it's not public service, it's self-service. So I got out of that. Then I worked for a nonprofit based at Johns Hopkins Medical, gave 10-to-1 service to poor kids in Baltimore. And you know who the people were who were donating the money? It was the business class. Why? Because the business class has the money and they know how to intelligently allocate capital. And we did that so poor Black kids in Baltimore got the opportunity and training to make more of themselves. Sam, that's what I did.
Can I ask you a question?
Real quick,
Yeah, go ahead.
Let me finish this real quick. You're talking about people don't have access to healthcare and a ceiling. I said that they did, and then you said, no, they don't. And then you started describing people who had leaky roofs. You see, you're nitpicking. Number one, when you get a handout, as they say, beggars can't be choosers. We are in one of the most advanced countries in the world. If you want to see poverty, you go to Addis Ababa, you go to Central African Republic, you go to Tanzania, okay? Here is relative poverty. Here you can make it. And you complain that People who don't live in the coast don't have opportunity. We have free public libraries since the time of Benjamin Franklin, little buddy. Benjamin Franklin created the free public library so that all peoples could go there and get knowledge. And it's easier than ever. You can go there, get an internet connection, get on the computer and study coding for 8 hours a day minimum in a free library under air conditioning without paying a goddamn penny. And under Obama, you can even get a free Obama cell phone. And as far as I understand it, that's still the case. So what in the hell are you complaining about? What you really should complain about is why people are not taking advantage of this opportunity. And we know it's failed taking advantage of the opportunity because you got immigrants who come in here left and right, Nigerian, Haitian, Vietnamese, you name it. They come here and they make a goddamn fortune. Why? Because Americans half the day are lazy and complaining, kind of like what you're doing right now. What's your solution, Sam?
Raise the minimum wage. Raise the minimum wage.
Economics. I'm not shocked because you've never run a business. Let me help you out. If you're paying someone $8 an hour today, let me help you out. This is real life.
Go ahead.
If you're paying someone $8 an hour today, you understand me? Pay attention. I run a company selling women's wrap skirts. Okay. It's a brick and mortar establishment. We sell women's wrap skirts. I got 2 sales representatives. I pay each one $8 a day. They're full-time. They get healthcare benefits, all those fringe benefits that they might want, right? Cool. Now you raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. Now I have to essentially double each person's income. What am I going to do, Sam? Did I all of a sudden sell a whole lot more skirts because your government raised the minimum wage?
Well, if we're talking about the current plan to implement the 15,
learn something. Hold on one
wait, but you're wrong. You're implying that the next day you're going to have to change the minimum wage. It's a phase in over 5 years with credits or subsidies to smaller businesses that have less than 100 or less than 500 employees to be able to build themselves up to $15 an hour.
Tell you how goofy you sound.
Oh, go please.
Sam, let me help you out. A business must balance a budget or else a business goes out of business. Am I right or wrong?
Yeah, right. Completely right.
Let me help you out. The American government has told you, and because you're ignorant, because you've never run one business, you're ignorant. Because you're ignorant, you think it makes sense. Let me show you how ignorant you are. You just agreed that a business must balance a budget to not go out of business. All right, great. So the government has told you it has a plan to help small business survive while they transition to doubling the minimum wage. You trust the government to do that? How is the government doing on balancing their budget right now?
I was giving you that just as an additional incentive on top to show you that they're attempting to help you transition into it. In my opinion, your business should not be allowed to exist if your business cannot generate the amount of profit to pay people a minimum wage that they can live off of. Then I don't think your business should exist. If you as an intelligent business owner can't find a way to raise either the capital from people by raising your prices or increase your market share in some way so that you can pay $15 an hour to your workers, then your business should be able to survive.
Sam, I want to cry at how destructive your ideas are. I want to cry because you hate poor people. Let me give you an example. You're saying things that are so goofy, it makes me sad. You literally said that the business should increase the price of the product, right? That's what you said, so that they can make up for the increased wage. Think about how stupid that is. You're going to increase the cost of the products. Now poor people have less access to the products. Sam, you don't make any sense, bro.
You say you ran a business. I mean, I'm familiar with the financial process of many companies.
Why are you so arrogant that you've run 0 businesses? You're so arrogant that you've run 0.
I've been part of the financial process.
You paid out $0 in wages. The economists in America, the majority of surveyed economists, have said that an increase in the minimum wage will hurt everyone. So why is it that a guy like you who's never paid out
define that. Let's be clear about what
I'm gonna define that right now, Sam.
Yeah, define what you mean by hurt everyone.
I'm gonna help you out right now, Sam.
Because I don't wanna spread any misinformation.
You and your everyone who are so convinced of your intelligence while having no evidence of you having ever contributed or done anything in the real world to benefit anyone else. Coffee Shop Revolutionary, let me help you out real quick. Listen closely.
First link.
Gradually, let me help you real quick. Gradually increasing the federal minimum wage from $7.25 to $15 will reduce employment by 1.4 million workers. Reduce employment, meaning people are going to lose jobs. So if you were listening when I was talking and I said if I have 2 employees, $8 each, and then the minimum wage eventually doubles, instead of keeping these 2 employees, I'm just going to have 1. Or maybe I might get clever and have none and replace them with a machine. Now, let me tell you this, Sam. They said gradually increasing the minimum wage over a 4-year period. Now, think about it. Population is growing over a 4-year period, but it said there's going to be 1.4 million in total job loss, right? So that's letting you know, even though there's increased demand for jobs, there are going to be fewer jobs. So not only does it hurt people because they're not going to have
Initially.
Stop talking real quick. Not only is it going to hurt people because they don't have a job, it's even going to hurt people who do have a job because there's more competition for the existing jobs, which means it's going to increase the requirement of people being high skilled. So in the short term and the long term, it hurts people. And you don't understand that because you have no experience. You're a sophist.
Initially, the jobs would be lost. But if you look at if you Google it, the Economic Policy Institute says that economists in support of a federal minimum wage
You said in support. Stop it. You said in support. So you're clearly already going to a biased audience.
I'm literally reading the article. I have not made any opinion or point yet. I'm literally just reading the article.
The survey says most economists are not in support. So why would you go to the minority? You're going to the minority of scholars.
You told me to Google it. This is the first one from the Economic Policy Institute.
Sam, use your brain. You're going to the minority of scholarship. Majority of economists, meaning people who study economics, have said it's a bad idea. So let me give you an analogy. If you had cancer, would you want to use the process of healing recommended by most oncologists, or would you go to a minority of oncologists? If you got a second opinion, you'd probably get the common opinion. So why, in this case, to heal the problem of poverty, do you go to the minority opinion?
You asked me to Google it.
I just asked you a question, Sam. Stop dodging. Why are you going to the minority opinion of scholars? So you can make your point. That's why. Because the majority of economists
you made a claim and you literally told me to Google it. I Googled it and I clicked the first link from the Economic Policy.
Why are you going to the minority scholarship opinion? Do not dodge that question.
I told you I went to the first link on Google.
Sam, I'm going to give you one last chance. If you had cancer, would you want to go to the majority opinion of oncologists, meaning these are experts in helping with the problem of cancer? If there's 10 experts and 7 of them say do this, are you going to use what the 3 guys said? Because this is the same case. Economists, meaning scholars in economics, the scholars in should we raise the minimum wage, most of them said don't raise it to $15. Would you go with the majority opinion or would you go with the minority opinion? What's the smarter thing to do?
2 things.
I
went to the first link. And then second, I would go with the ones that the majority opinion on the cancer diagnosis.
Right. And the majority opinion among economists is what?
Can you define that specifically? Because you're attempting to say that economists disagree with the $15 per hour minimum wage. Isn't the actual opinion something more in depth? The papers probably give a more specific scenario about the increase in minimum wage. Maybe they say, oh, there was a rolling scale of 11, 12, 13, 14. Maybe they all agree on 14, but you're only bringing up the point of 15. I don't know. These papers are very extensive. When you go into the Economic Policy Institute and you read the studies, they usually do like an aggregate of the studies that the economists come to the conclusions on. It's very complex. I'm not trying to weasel out of giving a concrete answer.
My parting words to you is that, talking and doing all that is fantastic. But if you and I drop dead today and we weighed up our deeds on the scale of who you are as a man, your words don't add up to shit, okay? Go out and do something to get people paid. If you believe in a better minimum wage.
I do.
1 second, my brother. If you believe in a better minimum wage, if you were a real man, you do what I do. And you hire people and pay them above minimum wage. See, the problem with people like you is that you hate freedom and you want to control others. And it's ironic because you want to control people who are your superior. You see, rather than being the intelligent person and creating a business and giving out jobs that pay well, you instead want to control others and tell them what to pay. Well, why don't you start a company and why don't you pay people well like I have? So that's number 1. Quit talking things and start doing things. That's my recommendation to you. But all in all, I appreciate you coming on this platform.
Look, You can believe what you want to believe. My ideology is I'd like to help out the vast majority of people, and I'd like to help out those that are the quote unquote least among us, or the people with the most power, and the people that are the weakest among us, that are exploited and on in general by the government and by society. I think that's a worthwhile endeavor. I think that's the right thing
But
to
you've
do,
not
the
helped
moral
anyone.
thing to
You've
do.
not paid out a penny, Sam.
Hey,
You can't even help yourself.
me advocating and me fighting for them and me
Advocating ain't
attempting.
help. Why don't you
I,
pay for it?
I think you would disagree with that throughout the course of
Because you
history,
ain't done anything, man.
advocating for the
Everybody can talk. You know how easy it is to talk, bro?
yeah,
Everyone can
of
talk.
course it's easy to
Why don't
talk,
you
but there
do
are some
something?
people who can only talk. There are some people whose power is
Sam,
only
if
in
you're
their
so
words.
smart as you think
I'm
you are,
sure
why
you
can't you
wouldn't say
create
the
your own
same thing
business?
about Martin Luther King or
Sam,
the
but we talking
slave
about Sam.
abolitionists
We're talking about Sam.
back in the day.
Sam, tell me this: if you're so smart, why are you not smart enough to create a product and create a business and hire people at the wage you think they should
I
earn?
never claimed I was smart. I never claimed I wanted to start a business. That doesn't
I'm gonna
mean
tell
that
you, you're not as smart as you think, and for that reason, you should sit down and let the people who really know what's up handle the business. You need to
I
sit down somewhere.
I don't think that's correct. Just because someone has intelligence or the ability to create a business doesn't mean that they're morally superior, smarter, or
But here's the thing about
or
people like
better than
you think
anyone
you're
else.
moral. You're not moral because moral is not babbling. We have enough preachers in our era. We need people who actually help. Here's the thing: if you drop dead and I drop dead, on your tombstone, it's going to record nothing because you've done nothing. Okay. And the reason I'm not being nice about it is because hopefully it inspires you to get up off your ass and quit talking because you're like a politician. You're babble. You believe in paying people above minimum wage, but you never done it. I don't even believe in raising the minimum wage, but I paid well above it. So I can point out people who have benefited. You dig? I can point out people who've benefited from me and my ideology. But here's the thing: that if people learn from you, they learn nothing because you've done nothing. You've been a parasite. And now you're so arrogant that you think that you can tell people how to do things you've never done. How can you tell people how to run a business at a $15 hour minimum wage when they're running a low profit margin business when you've never engaged in it? That's the kind of insanity we're dealing with. And you're so goofy that you think the government that can't even balance its own budget, the government is in trillions of dollars of deficit. And what's worse, the government literally in their own congressional budget report, they said if they do this thing, it's going to drive deeper budget deficit, but they want to do it anyways. How can they give sound advice to business owners who need to balance a budget? Because here's the thing: when a business doesn't make ends meet, they lose everything. And that falls down to the individual because you take the risk. That's why you get the big payoff. When the government does everything wrong, they just steal more money like the criminals they are. They steal money from the taxpayers. They don't have to make money because they can always turn around and steal it. Okay? So don't you tell me to rely on the government because you're such a goofball. You can't observe the simple fact that the one institution everyone has to interact with that the government has created, the DMV and the public schools, those are the two institutions you'll ever have to deal with. The DMV sucks, long lines, bad service, no customer service, and the public schools, look at the PISA rating for our students versus everywhere else around the world. I mean, it's quite amazing. And I know this is a public school teacher, and it's not a money deficit because when I was in graduate school at the Johns Hopkins School of Education, I did a study to see if it was our per capita spend per student, which was causing the underperformance, and it's not. It's the American culture, a culture of laziness and victimhood.